On July 15th, a lightning storm started hundreds of fires across the Pacific Northwest and 9 in or near Crater Lake National Park.
So right now we have very dense forests. We haven't been able to thin them all, we don't log them all, and they're just primed for fires.
The Timber Crater 6 fire was initially projected to grow as big as 20,000 acres.
We burned over a third of the park landscape in the last 3 years, so we've had a lot of smoke, a lot of impacts. So this year, our main objective was to get the fires out as fast as possible and as small as possible.
And as we looked at the fuels around the fire, it was very obvious looking, especially on the Fremont-Winema National Forest. There have been a lot of efforts put into some fuels treatment.
We've been doing treatments for many, many years to get the stands into these conditions where they're more resilient. Well, we do thinning of large diameter trees that's part of a commercial thin, and we also do small tree thinning, which are trees smaller than the commercial size, which is usually 9 inches in ponderosa pine, and then underburning.
Normally in this country, it's really hard to get crews in. It's really hard to get crews in where they can work safely. Fire behavior can be extreme. It's a lot of timber, it's thick.
The treated areas were not only thinned out, they were accessible by road.
That was a big plus, not just in the forest, but the park had a couple burns on the boundary. And although they didn't stop the fire, they dropped the fire from any potential for a crown fire into a slow-moving surface fire, which gave us time just to get in there, get things burned out ahead of it, and give us the opportunity to go more direct.
Going direct means attacking the fire at its active edge, something much more difficult to do in overgrown areas.
Fire behavior there is much more severe and extreme.
It was believed that this would be a very successful location to create an anchor point and to try to, catch the head of the fire.
In less than 3 weeks, the Timber Crater 6 fire was confined to just 3,126 acres, and many firefighters were freed up early to move on to other fires. In addition, these magnificent old-growth ponderosas were protected from an unchecked wildfire. There were no evacuations and no long-duration smoke impacts.
That's our goal of treating stands, is to allow a safe place for firefighters from which to work, and that also protects the public from large fires and the impacts both in smoke and just threat to private property.
The Timber Crater 6 fire demonstrates the value of long-term, repeated forest thinning treatments, including timber harvest, small tree thinning, and prescribed fire.
We can either manipulate the forest under our terms with thinning, burning, and doing those types of treatments, or we have big fires where we get potentially less desirable outcomes and can do actually worse damage to the ecosystem.
It costs a lot of money to do this, the fuel treatments before we do the underburning, but
The good effects, the positive effects of this versus the extreme fire behavior, costly fires, dangerous fires, it's just no comparison.
We have thousands, millions of acres across the country that are in need of this kind of treatment. It's very unlikely that we'll ever be able to get it all treated in time for the fire, but obviously we have examples like this that show how effective those treatments can be, and we can never do enough.
yeah, it's a passion for us. We really care about the land and the landscape and maintaining it into the future for future generations.
And the more of this, the less of these large, expensive wildfires.